So I look after Hindustan Coca Cola Beverages, which is essentially the manufacturing, sales, and distribution arm of Coca-Cola in India. It is a Coke-owned entity. It's the largest Coke-owned bottler in the world. So you may be asking yourself, why am I coming here and talking to you about marketing? And part of this is really evolving what we think marketing is. And I will spend a little time talking later about part of my credentials a long time ago when I spent more time in this space. But mostly, I'll spend time talking about leadership. And for me, leadership is, so you have a comment here, 442 promises every second, which is every time someone purchases one of my products in India. And that promise is, of course, for hygiene, for safety, for quality, but it's also a promise, a commitment to refreshment and hydration. And it's a hint of a promise of an experience that's created every single time you open one of our products and taste it, whether that's a sparkling beverage, a juice, a water, a dairy, a tea, a coffee, an energy drink. So what I'd like to do, if you'll indulge me, is just share with you a little bit about what HCCB is, because some of you may not know kind of who we are as a company, although I did have to restrain myself from showing you some of the Coke FIFA ads that I'm in love with. I assume that you've seen them. If not, please YouTube them later. I am not going to show you any TVCs right now. So what I'll share with you is that not only did you see some of the brands that I'm so proud of, but more importantly, some of the culture. And what you'll find is that actually we have a tremendous amount of fun and passion. And people at Coca-Cola all around the world will say that their blood is KO positive, KO being our New York Stock Exchange symbol, to really talk about how passionate we are, not just about our brands, but about our business. But today we're supposed to be talking about marketing. So this is something I've been thinking about for a lot, and a lot of the speakers today have talked about evolution. And I think evolution is happening faster than we could ever imagine. So my provocation to all of us, and the thing that we've actually spent a little bit of time thinking about, or a lot of time thinking about, is brand building actually dead? So a couple of proof points. So you have a couple of pictures here. We have the first iteration of Alexa from Amazon happening here first. We have Jeff, I've never met Jeff from Amazon, telling us that if you need to advertise, you have a problem. Right? So he's saying you shouldn't have to. If you sell an amazing thing, something should sell itself. You have an article that says 30% of the chief marketing officers would have been fired last year, which are all very interesting comments that I say bravely in front of a room of marketeers. But the reality is that things have absolutely changed, and technology has disrupted not just how we sell, but how we buy, how we shop ourselves. And this is something we need to make sure that we're connecting between what we academically think and what we actually see in our own behavior and our children's behavior. So e-commerce, putting products ahead of brands, really on a fundamental level. So if I'm going to go online and I'm going to order rice, I don't actually write what kind of rice I want. I just say rice. And it happens, which is very interesting and disruptive for us in very significant ways. This era of recommendation, not interaction. So I don't know how many of you watch Netflix. So I'm a Netflix consumer. So a bunch of people. Netflix tells me what show I think I would like to watch. Netflix actually decides for me what I'm doing on Saturday night. I know I should go out and do something fabulous Saturday night. But if I'm watching television with my children, I have one profile for Netflix that's for family, and they'll tell me what program I should watch with my kids. And then I have another one that's just me, for me and my husband, and that's a different show that it might tell me. I haven't gone to the cinema. I haven't consumed any advertising. I haven't spoken to anyone. But I'll believe Netflix because math and science tell me that I'm going to like that. Fascinating. Consumers defaulting to habits to make decisions. We've always had habits. Habits aren't necessarily a bad thing. I'll give an example of my husband. My husband's very predictable when we go out to eat. I don't know if you are like this or anyone else in your family is like this, but probably about once every other week we go to this one little restaurant, hotel type of place near our house, and my husband will order fried rice and a thumbs up. And the waiter sees him coming. He's also kind of, an enormous American guy who looks like a professional wrestler, so they know he's coming. But the second they come, that thumbs up is there on the table. Bam! And his fried rice is being cooked. I don't even know if he knows what's on the menu at this restaurant. I don't even know if they make fried rice for anybody else. I just know the minute he comes in, that fried rice is in front of him. And this is becoming more and more of a habit, more of a purchasing behavior that we're seeing across. Now, I'm still a shopper that will look through the menu every single time. I look at every single thing. I pick different things all the time. But the world is becoming more and more like my husband, which says, actually, I'm really tired and I'm in a rush and I don't have a lot of time for this and I don't want to actually have a full shopping experience. I just want what I like. I just want what I know. And in this case, it's a fried rice and a thumbs up. The last one I actually find the most interesting. So if I think about my days as a associate brand manager, I spent a lot of time talking about how to influence what people think, what people feel, and what people do. Many of us in the room, I'm sure, have gone through these exercises many times. And if I reflect today, actually, what people are doing is they're spending a lot of time thinking about how they feel or how something makes them feel, and then they just do it. They're not necessarily thinking about consequence. They're not necessarily thinking about budget. They're doing because they want this experience of feeling. Now, if they do something more than feel themselves, they check the feelings of those around them. So I'm going to check my feelings. I'm going to check my friends' feelings, my family's feelings, and then I'm still doing something. And think happens later, if at all. So what does this mean for the fate of marketing? It means that brand building actually becomes more relevant, hyper-relevant. However, it requires a tremendous amount of discipline, much more discipline than we've ever used before. So in Coca-Cola, certainly in HCCB, but Coca-Cola globally, we've spent a lot of time thinking about this. So what I'll do is I'm going to share with you some facts, some data, some insights that we've driven, thinking about the consumer behavior, thinking about the shopper behavior and customer behavior, and how we can have a deeper connection. Because at the end of the day, all of us are trying to find a connection with the marketplace. So you have 6 facts. The first one is all about data. And you'll have a lot of industries, a lot of functions, a lot of leaders talk about data, and data is becoming even more relevant, even more important. So the only reason why I put our friend Jeff back up on the stage was just to show in a couple of short years how we went from marketing is irrelevant to, forgive me, I'm an American, although I'm also only Indian. But as an American, Super Bowl is the biggest advertising spending in the United States, and the single largest advertiser at the single largest advertising spend venue happened to have been Amazon, who told us all a mere short years before that advertising was dead. So how the world changes, right? How we have to continue to evolve. Chief growth officers, so many companies now have chief growth officers. So we saw an article that said that CMO is dead. What has happened is the chief marketing officer has evolved. And the chief marketing officer has to be responsible for an integrated approach across marketing, commercial, digital technology, innovation, sales, and become data proficient, digital proficient. Because in order to have the most amount of relevance, we have to connect to the digital shopper, the digital consumer, the digital customer. And that data management is really important. So even when we have data, the question is, what are we supposed to do with it? So I can spend probably 3 hours talking to you about the relevance of data. It's just to give you a thought provoke to make sure that we're continuing to be disciplined in data moving forward. The other piece is making sure how we handle transactions. So the last picture is my friend Alexa. And the reason why Alexa is my friend is because when you say, Alexa, I would like a Coca-Cola, she will bring a Coca-Cola to you. So in this situation, we've outsourced the shopper. We've actually said the shopper can be somebody else. We don't have time as society to be a shopper anymore. Shopper's a non-relevant thing. I'm only a consumer. And I've outsourced shopping, in this case, to Amazon, which is what our friend Jeff was promoting on the Super Bowl, saying you don't need to be the shopper anymore. Being a shopper is inconvenient, and you can be just a consumer. And that's great for big brand companies. It's also dangerous for big brand companies, but it's really dangerous for small companies, because how we think about how Alexa chooses shopping, how Alexa decides competition is actually a really interesting conversation that we need to continue to think about. It was mentioned earlier, at the end of the day, or the beginning of the day, I'm a mathematician. And I think it's important to note that I actually think marketing is science and math, right? The same way. It's also art. Of course it is. But the same way music is also math. The same way all parts of art are also math and science, and making sure we find the right blend between the art and the creative and the math and the science actually is where all the magic happens. So fact number 2, and this is all about differentiation. What makes you special? What makes you unique? What makes someone pick your thing over anybody else? And at Coca-Cola, we call it edge. And our belief, our research shows that only brands that have actual edge, actual differentiation, actual specific insights, specific needs, specific actions have a right to win in the marketplace. Consistency. Now, you might have a brand come in and sneak in and do something for a little bit of time, but it's not sustainable. So how do we find out what your brand's edge is? Now, all of you know our beautiful Indian products. So forgive me, I've taken the liberty to share with you some products I worked on in the US before I came to India, and some of the brands I've worked on. Very quickly on Coke, and I'll spend more time on the other products. Coca-Cola no sugar. So there's a product called Diet Coke. It's been in the market for a long time. Diet Coke does not taste like Coke. And we had a very specific, loud feedback from a lot of consumers that said, hey, I would like my Coke to actually be sugar-free. I'm concerned about sugar. I understand sometimes I love sugar, but I don't want to take it too often, so what can I do? And Coca-Cola Zero, Coca-Cola No Sugar is Coca-Cola's response to it's the same Coke formula that has the same taste, the same experience, the same, when you open the can, that has the magic of Coca-Cola with actually no sugar in it. So this was, how do you take the edge? How do you take what's different and actually pull it forward? The other 2 are products you may not know about. So these are products that I helped work on in the US. The one in the middle is Honest Tea. Honest Tea is a little play on words, but it's part of the edge. It's all about honesty and integrity. You know exactly what's in this product. It is completely organic, completely fair trade. It's completely impossible to produce. It's difficult to do the logistics, but it's beautiful tasting, and it resonates with a very specific consumer that wants that experience. Simply is another product which I love, the Simply product, and there's a couple of insights here, and this is Coke's answer of right from the tree into the bottle, right? So this is 100% fresh pressed juice. It is immediately refrigerated from the time it's pressed, and it's refrigerated continuously through the entire supply chain until it shows up in your grocery store. It is in a carafe that resembles the carafe that my mother had when I grew up. So there used to be a glass carafe that looked just like this, and that's the carafe that you have this product displayed in. And it's all about freshness. It's all about understanding origin of fruit. And we spend a lot of time talking about fruit in India, and I won't tell you all of the good stuff we're doing with farmers and with agriculture in India. But the concept is to understand what your edge is and then make sure it's relevant for the consumer. Because your edge will dull. Like any knife, right? Over time, your edge disappears. And it disappears for 2 reasons. One, the world changes. What was unique, what was different, what was special and important about your product to a consumer, to a shopper, actually changes. And it changes faster than we could ever imagine. So making sure that we understand what our brand's edge is, making sure that we capture whatever gains, benefit, goodness that comes from that edge, we're going to attract competition. Because, and I love this here, the law of the nemesis. If you have something good, someone will want it. If you are making money, someone wants to come also make money. India is only full of entrepreneurs. India is only full of people who want to be successful and move ahead, which is fantastic. I love competition. I'm probably just as, if not more competitive than everybody else in this room. So how do we deal with this? We get better. We find the new thing that's special and different and has more edge than even the first thing was. And we continue to reinvent ourselves and continue to ingest and continue to invest. Because edge is what's going to keep us competitive. But we come back to being a discipline. And this is about process, because I want to be different all the time. But I have to stay true to who I am. I have to be authentic. So I have the blessing and the privilege of looking after a 132-year-old brand. I don't want to reinvent what Coke means to the world. I want to celebrate it. However, I need it to be continuously relevant. I need it to be continuously a moment of connection, a moment of refreshment, a moment of happiness. So how do we make sure we do this? Coca-Cola, so for those of you, if you ever managed to go to Atlanta, so I worked in our Atlanta office before being very blessed to come to India. And there is an actual tourist attraction. One of the largest tourist attractions in Atlanta is to go to a place called World of Coke. Has anybody been to World of Coke? Yeah, thank you. And World of Coke will tell you all about Coca-Cola, or the secret formula, all of these things. Underneath the Coke building in Atlanta, there is an archive of marketing for 130 years. Every Coke print ad, every single bottle, everything Coke has ever done is retained. And we go walk the halls. And we see what worked, what didn't work, why did it work, how is it still relevant, how do I continue to have edge, but be proud of where I'm from. And for me, this is the story of India. Okay, I walk around, I run around the country every single day. I'm probably in at least 3 states a week. And I will tell you, India is in a country, in my belief, my humble belief as a student of India, that wants to progress, that wants to move forward, that wants to evolve, but wants to also celebrate its heritage and its history and its past. And for me, this is a beautiful thing. So how do we make sure that we continue to celebrate who we are, who our parents were, what we stand for, but also continue to be very competitive globally and very entrepreneurial in our approach? So you have the Singapore girl from one of our friends in one of the airlines, and also, of course, Apple, have been brilliant about being consistent for their brand purpose, consistent with what they stand for, and whether it's imagery or patents or trademarks, but also continuing to retain edge and continuing to differentiate themselves in the market. So we spoke about edge. Fact 5 is edge isn't enough. So edge is great. But if you have a great differentiated product, is that enough in order to be able to break through? My provocation is no. My provocation is yes, brand edge is most important, but I need brand edge in cooperation with brand equity, activation, and competitiveness. So I'll give you an example of Sprite. I give you this example for 2 reasons. One, Sprite is the largest FMCG brand in India. Second, it's my favorite brand. So we're going to talk about my favorite brand. So when we think about this specifically, the story I'll tell you is this is a boy going to university. Let's call him Ravi. Let's say he goes to university right here in Mumbai. And how important is Sprite in Ravi's life? And why does Sprite have brand edge in this specific occasion with this specific shopper and consumer? And it's really about, so Sprite is a brand, and I won't spend a whole lot of time talking about brand purpose, but it's all about refreshment. And actually in India, there was a long time that Sprite was actually substituted with the word in different languages for clear, right? So if I want a clear drink, I want Sprite, which is great. So how do we think about what clear means? How do we think about what refreshment means? And how do we make sure that it's authentic in that proposition, in that value statement? So equity is Sprite is a large household brand. It is honest. It is straightforward. You know exactly what you're getting. You see what you're getting. I feel very comfortable and confident. And it's really all about clarity. Activation. So I'm Ravi. I'm away from school. I'm hanging out with my friends. And what does that look like? I kind of want something that's lime. I'm not sure what I want. And I want to be very targeted. for my brand edge for Ravi when he's at the convenience store with his friends after school when he's thirsty. He will have a Sprite, and there will be activation specifically designed to attract Ravi to that Sprite. And then competitiveness, understanding what the landscape is, knowing that Ravi has lots of choices, making sure that Ravi picks up that Sprite and has a fantastic experience so that next time he wants to pick up a Sprite again. So for me, although we talk a lot about brand edge, because I think it's the differentiator that's going to make the big difference, you can't forget all the basics, right? At work, we talk a lot about competitive strategy, strategic advantage, all those nonsense words. But a lot of it is also what I call, fix the foundation, back to the basics. Don't forget the basic stuff in our desire to be different, in our desire to compete. So fact 6, which is our last fact, and I want to spend a little time talking about this, is frequency is not enough. Someone drinking something, so if I sell Kinley water and I get someone to drink 6 waters a day, that's not enough to actually grow my business. What I need to do is grow my franchise. And growing your franchise is actually where all of your real growth, your exponential growth happens, because frequency is incremental growth. Incremental growth is not enough for India. Exponential growth, our potential is exponential growth, not just inside India, but to export out to the other parts of the world, is really about franchise. And franchise for me means 2 things. It means more drinkers and more products. Okay, it may mean different things for your business, but it's really about expansion. Expansion in a fundamentally different way. And part of this is from a whole bunch of data and studies, and it's a little counterintuitive, because I think recently we've been spending a lot of time talking about frequency, talking about volume, talking about transactions in and of themselves. And what I would like you to do is cast your mind bigger than that, bigger than frequency, to see what the true opportunity of India for India, but more importantly, India as a global leader actually has. So what does this mean for HTCB, and what have we done? First thing is new outlets. So how do we actually reach more people in India? It's taken us about 20 years to get to 2 million outlets. What is an outlet? What does that mean? So an outlet is a grocery store, a convenience store, a restaurant, a hotel, a dhaba, those type of things. That's an outlet for us. I set a target to say, okay, in the next 3 years, I want another 1 million. And India loves a challenge. India loves a goal. HTCB are the most competitive people. And we're only this is year 1, and we're in July, and they've already opened 450,000 outlet. Yeah? So we're saying, okay, but what if we do 1 million this year? What if we do 1 million next year? How do we make sure that we actually think about what our potential is from a footprint standpoint, from a reach standpoint, which is really interesting. I'm going to jump to the end. Biggest product portfolio ever. So we need to be more than just Coke. We need to be more than just Sprite. We need to be more than just Thumbs Up. And what we've focused on, so me and my brother KK, who helps lead a lot of the R&D across India, have spent a lot of time, and he's spent a lot of time developing new products. And what you'll see is we've already launched a lot of new products. We'll continue to have a very strong pipeline of products across multiple portfolios. So whether it's different types of hydration, energy drinks, we have a dairy juice hybrid coming, tea and coffee, all sorts of things, in order to be able to handle all refreshment across India, both hot and cold. So very excited about that. New premium division, so we have a lot of products that are to the mid-tier of India. We have some products that are value products, and we've now this year just started premium products. One of them, there was a table here with products, but so now we have 4 different waters that we actually sell in India. So across a wide variety of need states for different people who have different requirements, and each of them has to have their own edge. Each of them has to have their own purpose and reason for being. And then the last one that I'll spend a little bit of time on is obsessive segmentation. So is that a fair statement? Am I obsessed with segmentation? Probably yes. So what does that mean? That means that India is a very complicated place. And to say anything is one country, India, from a consumer standpoint is probably a miss. And we said, okay, actually, let's go to the state level. And then we went to the state level and said, actually, probably it should be a district level. And then actually what happened was we got down to the mandals because you know what? It wasn't good enough. Because when you drive across India, what you'll find is that so many people are united with many things. But when you get into the actual culture, it's very different. And the needs of the shoppers and the consumers are very different. How they celebrate, what they eat, how much spice they put in, how many people come to the dinner table, where they sit and eat, all of these things, very different. So understanding your consumer down to an individual mandal level, into an individual, and then going across the channels, where do they actually shop, and then going through the occasions, what do they actually buy, why, and handling that from a work standpoint. So today, I inherited a company that had 32 segments, to give you a feel. Okay, today we have 835 segments. But here's the best thing about it. When we had 30 segments, everyone had to memorize those 30 segments. Now we have technology that you don't have to memorize a single segment because your tab tells you what segment you're in and gives you the answer. So all the complexity is actually sitting with the data, sitting in the back office, sitting with the commercial leadership, and the individual salesperson only is worried about Ravi's shop, Ravi's consumption, what he specifically wants, because it might say that it's a convenience store, but it might actually be a bakery. But actually at the bakery, the whole thing's parcel. It has nothing to do with it because actually it's for the store that people don't have any canteen in the work office, so they use the bakery as actually an out-of-home eating occasion. And we didn't know that before, but now we do. And now we know that what before we thought was Ravi's convenience store is actually a catering hall that looks like a bakery. And that's why segmentation is so powerful. And understanding that actually that same restaurant in the morning actually is a sit-down breakfast restaurant. Because that's where people go and get their tea and a puff. Right? So understanding all of this is critical. And this is honestly some of the fantastic things we've been able to do in HCCB. I encourage everybody to spend time to think about the power of your potential franchise, to think about the power of data, to think about segmentation, and continuing to help grow India to its full potential. So that's the end of my speech, and thank you so much for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to share with you today.